Mr. Nonuju, you consider those submissions those of an envious man? Do they make it difficult for us to take away the message from the messenger?
Yes, thank you very much. My friend, Honorable, has repeated the same mistakes that the government has been making. They go after the messenger instead of dealing with the message. The message is very clear. Buhari has, through his ways, forced several separatist movements in the country. Buhari's employment of nepotism as policy is the reason why you now have all sections of the country saying they are no more interested in this issue. The most problematic one is security. 2 weeks ago, I went to somewhere in Katsina. Specifically, I went to Damusa, I went to Sapana, I went to Basari, I went to Dusuma, I also went to Kankara. In all these places, Fulani bandits are killing Hausas in multitudes and government is not there. This problem also replicates itself in several parts of our country, and the government has not allowed a prosecution of all those people that have been killing Nigerians all over. Today, as we're talking, Buhari is still trying to seize ancestral lands so that he can find lands by force to resettle Fulani refugees escaping from Mali. Instead of him and the other West African leaders to come together and try to implement the 2015 peace agreement, no. All he's been doing is using one scheme after the other to try to seize ancestral land. He said grazing reserve, we said no. He said cow colony, we said no. He said he wants land for Ruga, we said no. Now again, he is talking about consolidation of all the streams and waters, and everywhere we have waterways, plus 6 kilometers of land therefrom, so that he can have land and water to be able to use to resettle refugees. This is not the right way to rule this country. Yeah. Everywhere there is tension.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Policies have divided this country.
So
and that's why we are happy that President Obasanjo is speaking up.
Okay, so how do people take that seriously? I mean, do you have it on good authority when you say they're trying to seize ancestral land? Other than, is it your impression from what you read in the dailies and the bills submitted? Do you have any means other than that to actually say this is what it is that you're saying? Exactly,
yes. In 2011, in central Mali, there is a war that started between the Dogon and the Fulani. By 2015, it has gotten so bad, there was a peace agreement. And then refugees started coming into Nigeria from there. We have had this problem before when Nigeria had to take in Lebanese refugees when Israel occupied East Lebanon. We settled some of those Lebanese in Apapa, in Kanu, and some other places. When this crisis came, instead of present the truth to Nigerians, he started saying he wants land for cow, for grazing reserve. We bent down and we saw land. He said he wants cow colony. We bent down and we saw it was land. Today, how come you're having refugees all over Nigerian bushes? There are no Nigerians in northern Nigeria who are leaving their communities and going into bushes in hostile communities anywhere else. Anywhere you see them, these people are refugees escaping from that crisis in Mali, where, yes, Buhari has tried, but very late. Very late. If he had put in the effort he's putting now, when that peace agreement was agreed, I do not think that there would have been a need for him to be looking for land. Till today, he's looking for land. Ask yourself, how come people are being killed for ancestral land?
Okay,
today, as I'm talking to you, 58 villages are sacked in Riyom, in Barkin Ladi, and Jos South local government, and those people are still living in IDP camps. Why not put them back to their village instead of having refugees now occupying those 58 villages in Barkin Ladi, Riyom, and Jos South?
All right. Now, you have raised some issues, and, we always say that it's important to substantiate some of this. But let's go to Honorable Adamu and get his reactions to some of the issues you have raised. On one hand, you started by saying that, well, this sounds like an envious statement. But I recall in 2015, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo endorsed the then APC candidate, who's now President Buhari. I recall that the president, during an interview, said about former President Obasanjo that because General Obasanjo is highly respected, and as far as the Nigerian nation is concerned, there is no serious issue that can be discussed without people seeking his opinion and listening to it. That was then. What has changed?
Well, that's just being courteous. Simple. That's just being courteous. But that's Buhari for you. But I am Farouk Adebo Aliyu. I mean, I have dealt with Obasanjo in when he wanted to continue. But look, let me first of all address the issue of this Fulani. I am first of all very proud to be a Fulani man and a herder also, and I have no regret for being one. And let me also tell him that it is not true that this government is trying to impose Fulanis anywhere. He should remember that, look, we are operating a federal system. Jigawa State, where I come from, is willing to accept Fulanis. So any Fulani man that is willing to settle in Jigawa is welcome. Any herder that is willing to settle in Kano is welcome. So if Kach, if his state, Imo, Anambra, or wherever he comes from, are not willing to do that, so be it. And look, it is no government, this government is not forcing any state to take anybody that they don't want. But remember then, the constitution of this country allows a citizen of this country to live freely anywhere. Where is the evidence that these Fulanis are coming from Mali? Where is the evidence that they are not Nigerians? So let's not weep the sentiment of where you come from, where you don't come from. We are Nigerians. Let us see, how do we fix the problem we have in our country? Not talking the way Obasanjo is talking. As I said, look, it's envious. It's envious because of the qualities of government of today, what is happening in this country that he did not achieve. So
okay, let's take a look.
The way he's ranting.
Let's do an analysis of some of the issues he raised. Well, you talked about the Constitution. He also talked about the constitutional review. But then beginning from that part where he talked about Nigeria is fast drifting to a failed and badly divided state. I'm not sure. Are you aware of a fragile state index, which ranks Nigeria 14th out of 178 countries, scoring 97.3 of a maximum 120? That's saying that Nigeria, according to these, this ranking, is in quote failing.
Well, you see, some of these rankings, they are just rankings by other people. What is happening in my country? What is happening in our country? Is it true with what they are saying? And look, you see, all these things that they're talking about, when they talk about constitutional amendment, when they talk about restructure the country, forgetting the fact that when Obasanjo was in government, attempted to amend the constitution, he never succeeded. This government has amended the constitution to what the people want. So if you look at it, when other people talk of their index, is their index. But is it true in this country that all these indexes are true? It's not.
All right, let me take it to Regional. One of the things that the former president talked about is that I believe one of our major problems in the past was that we did not dialogue enough. We talk at ourselves and selfishly keep old prejudices and biases. I mean, if we reference a few of the things that you said now, you probably also validated some of those opinions that the former president expressed in this speech. Is there any way you think we can begin to talk with ourselves rather than talk at ourselves?
Well, you see, unfortunately, for anybody talking like this,
yes,
there's a national assembly in place.
It's for Mr. Nonuju, please. Go ahead, Mr. Nonuju.
Thank you very much. We are trying to talk to ourselves. The National Assembly, Honorable talks about, is a byproduct of a fraudulent military contraption and the fact that we were forced to take that Decree 24. We have now sat down And we found out that what the soldiers wrote and forced us to carry as constitution is simply unworkable. We are trying to talk to ourselves. Every time we have public discussion, you can see in reaction to the ethnic cleansing in Kaduna State, when Obed Melafia tried to speak openly, they used the police, the state police, to start inviting him. When Obasanjo has now spoken, they start attacking his person. When radio and TV stations want to allow free speech to occur, they put fines on them, impose restrictions on them. What you will see is these people have managed to perform state capture, and they do not want us to speak anymore. The way we are speaking up right now, it's a body of informal conferencing. And when we speak out, then we can choose those things, calibrate them, sit down at a round table and agree. We have talked at a national conference. But, of course, you know, President Buhari does not want to even recognize a sum total of the words of all of us. Now,
the conversation you are talking about now, Mr. Anuju, just one moment. The conversation you are talking about now is what the National Assembly is trying to start. I mean, with this constitutional amendment that's been proposed. Isn't that something?
No, it's not something. This is the constitutional amendment are things you've heard. The APC in its manifesto said they will start when they hit the ground, constitutional amendment. A lot of things that they have promised. We have talked about it. What they are doing is whenever they see complaints, tensions, the agitations everywhere, they start telling you they will do constitutional amendment. Go and mark it. Nothing will come out of those rhetorics. Because what I'd like to tell you is if you want to predict the future, calculate the past. Look at Buhari's government.
Just one word. Let's take it back to Honorable Ame now. There was something that he has said now, and which the former president also referenced in his speech, where he talked about a ray of hope was somewhat manifested in the last 10 days or thereabout, when the Northern Elders Forum and Yoruba Summit Group complimented each other in separate press releases on the Senate's idea of inviting submissions. Now, these regional bodies, if you want to call it socio-economic or socio-political groups, all coming together to agree, Northern Elders, Southern Elders, Southeastern Elders, they all agree that these things are right. Don't you see value in what they are saying? And that shouldn't the presidency be paying attention to it as opposed to just outrightly conflagrating what's been said?
Well, you see, that's the difference between truth and reality. Now, I don't know who spoke, from the Afenifere side, but from the Northern Elders, if I remember very well, Dr. Hakim, who spoke on behalf of the Northern Elders. If you remember very well, a few months back, or last year, he was the chief of staff to the former Senate president. And he was also part of the constitutional amendment. How come now he's not talking about that? And look, we're not animals. We're human beings and we have a constitution guiding us. So anybody who wants to talk, the way to talk to ourselves is through our members. You cannot change the constitution without going through the members. And whatever you think the fault is in the constitution, put it forward. And there is no amount of rhetorics, no amount of brigandage. Nothing will change the constitution if not through dialogue, talking to the National Assembly. Afenifere, Northern Elders Forum, or anybody talking, they are free to talk. Just like when he spoke about Melafia. Who said anything about Melafia? Who did anything to him? He lied. He said one governor, a northern governor. Who is that northern governor? Let him come out and say the person. He didn't say that. So you mean as a nation, as a government, we have responsibility. We should investigate anybody who comes to lie or anybody who tries to foment trouble. We are not Obasanjo that will send soldiers to kill people in Odi or to kill people in Zaki Biam. We don't do that as a government here. So that's the difference. So anybody who is not happy with the constitution should go through the normal process. Rhetorics, that's fine. You can talk, you can say anything. No matter what you think of your representatives, are still the legitimate body to do this constitutional amendment. Unless if we will continue talking among ourselves, shouting at each other, and then nothing will happen. So you don't want this constitution? Start constitutional amendment. And I assure you, you could see that there are certain parts of the constitution that we were able to change. Our government, When Obasanjo came, he couldn't change anything because what he wanted to do was just to extend his tenure. And Obasanjo, President Buhari, is not willing to extend his tenure. So if CACH or PDP or anybody, for that matter, can approach his member as a private member's bill or to go for the constitutional amendment. And if they don't want to go, they said they will not go because they don't recognize the National Assembly, so be it. That's their problem. It's their business. We'll continue to run the government in the best interest of this country and the people of Nigeria.
But Honorable, I mean, you know, the last time they tried this amendment, I think it was in the 8th Assembly, it fell through because even as we speak, there are several people who have this impression. They think, even though we touched on it yesterday, they think that, look, the Northern Bloc don't want this restructuring. If you look through some of the dailies today, there are security challenges in different parts of the country. When they had this ministerial review, the president did say, well, even though the Corruption Perception Index says we're not doing good enough, but he says he's doing his best. And then if you also take a look at some of the other indices about the economy, poverty capital of the world, where he says we're trying to move the country out of poverty. So those statistics, they're real. So shouldn't we say that, well, yes, they may be real, but you're doing something, but from the figures, it shows that, look, what you're doing is not good enough. Shouldn't they accept that and say, okay, well, we have some of his messages, there are some truths in some of them?
You see, nobody is saying everything they said is a lie. No, I can understand. But now, let's talk about the economy now you spoke about. Unfortunately for the whole world, we had COVID this year.
Where 102 million Nigerians are said to be in poverty. And so if you check it right now, as you know, the team is doing at the moment, that is what the website reads about the situation of poverty in Nigeria. And the president himself did even say, yes, they want to lift 100 million people out of poverty. And so they gave a deadline, a timeline for which they wanted to do that. So that is an acknowledgement of some of these figures. How then can you say you don't believe this is true?
Yeah, because as I said so, these are index, but that's not reality. Reality, it's people are eating. So if you feed, you cannot be said to be poor.
Are you saying the president saying would lift 100 million people out of poverty is not reality? Is that what you're saying? BS also says 82 million Nigerians are below the poverty line. Is that also not reality?
2 million?
82 million. The NBS. The president said he would lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. Is that not reality? So clearly, yes, 100 million Nigerians are in poverty, I mean, from that statement. Is that not reality?
Well, I concede. It is a reality.
Onuju, how should we approach this now?
Well, I think to show that the poverty is serious and Buhari's rhetorics are all based on lies. The other day, the government went to the West African Grain Bank to beg for grains. If true, as Honorable has been glossing it over here, that we are self-sufficient in food production, there will have been no need for Nigeria to go to the sub-region begging for grains. Yes, we begged for grains and we got grains. All I want you to know is that a lot of Buhari's governance is based on rhetorics. As you can see right now, Honorable Farouk was just denying it, and then when you now read those figures and told him that Buhari said so, he quickly said he concedes. So the idea here is to continue to gloss and lie.
All the 80 million Nigerians below poverty, have we started being poor when APC came to government?
Well,
are you telling me that, look, are you telling me, or whoever put the index,
good,
whatever, and
the poverty,
whoever, are you saying that
the poverty,
Nigeria was not this poor before we came?
Don't forget, apart
and
from
are you saying that we are not growing what we feed?
Well,
we're not eating what we are growing?
Fine. What I'm saying,
the COVID, isn't it a reality?
Honorable, hold on. One thing is that we have gone through 2 recessions even before the COVID. So don't blame anything on COVID. An economy has tanked. Why? Buhari does not use the best. If you are a brilliant economist, when he talks to you, you go, they will say, where is it from? They say, it's from so and so part of the country. No, we don't want that. So that employment of nepotism as policy is why the country has not been able to employ its best to guide it. Look at the other day, I went to see a friend of mine, a member of the new Economic Advisory Council. And the man was telling me that he just heard the government announce blah, blah, blah about the removal of subsidy. And I laughed. And I asked him, I say, is it possible to remove subsidy and the government will still keep PPROA and still put the equalization there? The man laughed. I say, well, why don't we have truth from this government? The government has been based on lies. You can see that people are inside the government looting. We were under lockdown, and the woman at Mr. Humanitarian Affairs was talking us that she's been spending billions feeding children in school, that every single Nigerian got money from her exercise. I didn't get. Nobody in my household got.
Can we begin
I went to my village to ask them, did
just
you get
one
money?
moment,
They said
Mr.
no.
Onanuju.
And when I
Mr. Former President Obasanjo has recommended, just one moment. He has recommended that we should begin to talk with each other as a nation, irrespective of what region, what part, what political leaning, what religious leaning, what ethnic nationality we belong to. We should be speaking with each other, not at each other. And some of these socio-political groups are already beginning to speak the same tone. What should we be doing now to support government to do what government needs to do for the people?
What we should do right now is to try to reach people like Honorable Farouk or anybody that has access, that when they talk, Buhari listens. To beg Buhari to please come back home, become a government that belongs to all of us. President Obasanjo is 100% correct. Stop listening and thinking only about people of your own clan. Look at the other people. Talk to them. Listen to what they are saying. What, in principle, they are telling Buhari is, please start to become president of Nigeria. Nigeria is a diverse society of several ethnicities, of several diverse people. But Buhari doesn't see that.
All right,
so far,
just one moment. Mr. Onanuju, you have already recommended the solution. You have already recommended the solution. Don't click on do on it. Now, Honorable Ahmed, in the same light, but do me one favor. It's always to rebuff. It would seem then like there is a problem with communication. Is it possible for government to begin to take some of this critiquing and not to see some of this communication as critiquing and not criticizing the government, so that we can begin to communicate and not, conflagrate the situation further?
You see, just like he spoke about a member of the Economic Advisory Council who said that he just heard. And it's so convenient for him to remain on that seat. If I were him, he does not believe in what happens, he should resign. He should leave. Otherwise, and look, we take criticism, that are they are constructive. We try as much as possible to do what is right. That is why when people were saying there was no economic management team was put in place. And they are advising the government, that's why the subsidy was removed. It's all part of their advice. So if we do not take advice from other people, but then remember, we are also coming from opposition. We know what it means to be in opposition. Sometimes you just rant.
Honorable, exactly, one moment. You began, just one moment, Honorable. You began by saying that there is value in some of the things that the former president said. But the statement from the presidency didn't seem to go in that tangent. If there are values, as you have said, in some of the things that he said, isn't it just possible for us to take the message, irrespective of who the messenger is?
Well, some of the, let me concede that, look, Obasanjo is a Nigerian like any other person. Let me concede he was in government. Let me concede that he might mean well, but I still come back to being envious. You know, you cannot, this messenger in Obasanjo, you cannot remove the messenger from the message, because the envy is part of the messenger's antics in this country. He is envious of Buhari, and because, look, if you remember very well, let me even say it publicly, there was a time when President Obasanjo went with a request to Mr. President, and he refused. That was why he wrote the last letter he wrote. So, because, you know, Obasanjo is Obasanjo, and Obasanjo will remain to be Obasanjo, an envious man who does not see good in anybody but him, who thought Buhari couldn't do it, and Buhari is doing it. Buhari won election, and whatever he did, a lot of things to make sure Buhari didn't come back in 2019. Well, the people of this country believe
we're winding down now, gentlemen. Honorable, let me ask you, I mean, one wonders, if the former president made mistakes during his time, shouldn't he then be in the position to say, well, look, I made mistakes. Well, I'm saying these things so that you are seen to be taking this on board and not make the same mistakes that I make. That's one. And secondly, what do you tell people who have this impression that there are men, militia who are armed in some parts of the country of Fulani extraction, giving herders a bad name, killing people, possessing their farms, just giving that name so that saying that, look, they want to take over land. What do we do to correct that notion? If we could address both shortly.
Well, what we should do is dialogue. We need to be talking to them, talking why, what's happening. And you remember also, in the history of this country, this grazing land that he's saying we shouldn't have, cattle routes, they've been there from probably 100, 200 years. And people have encroached into these lands. So these are sources of arguments and sources of conflict between Fulanis and farmers. So this has to be addressed by government. And this government is trying as much as possible to do that. And then also on the security issue, the government is going after these bandits. Not all Fulanis are bandits. There are bandit Fulanis, yes? And look, let us not sectionalize criminality. If a Fulani man is a criminal, he's a criminal. And this government will not condone any Fulani man that is a criminal. So let's not look at where somebody comes from and say that, look, this government is hiding, is protecting anybody because he's a Fulani man. It is not true. Any Fulani that is found to be a bandit will be dealt with as a bandit.
All right, Mr. Nanuju. Well, yes, you heard that. So let's go ahead and give us your concluding thoughts as we wind down.
Yeah, Farouk's rhetorics are good to hear. But then if you ask me, I will tell you that the past precedes anything that I would take in terms of believing what he says. Yes, that insecurity. Where these bandits seize land, perform ethnic cleansings, and we do not see any single prosecution from government, we then make up our mind that yes, the government approves of it. Why are the ethnic cleansing ongoing in Plateau and Kaduna and no single prosecution occurs? That makes us believe the government sanctions it. How come the soldiers and security agents that stay hands from confronting these people and you still keep them there to become service chiefs forever? That makes us believe that those service chiefs are doing exactly in ancestral lands. As you can see now, the water bill is all about that. Water bill seeks to seize your land, seize the waters that have in the hands of abrogating the Land Use Act.
When National Assembly returns, I think that matter perhaps will be tabled and then the country can take a look at it. But Honorable Adamu, I think you forgot to respond to the part of the mistakes by the former president. So if he made mistake in his time, shouldn't he be pointing out certain things? And secondly, you didn't tell us, when you claimed that he offered you money, did you report it to the ICPC or AFC?